Hey, everybody. So today we are going to be talking about the Saturn Neptune conjunction that takes place at 0 degrees, 45 minutes of Aries on Friday, February 20th of 2026. Now, this is a major collective transit. Everybody and their mother is talking about it, and rightfully so. It doesn't happen all the time. I actually did a couple of blog posts about this, and a video on this about 8 months ago in the summer of 2025. As I'm filming this, it's February of 2026. Yeah, like 8 months ago. But I will put those in, I'll link those in the description box so you can check them out if you have not checked them out. I will be referring to my blog post, my blog posts. So throughout this video. So if you see me like looking over or looking down, that's what I'm doing. I don't have a script, but I do like to have if I've done a blog post on something I'm going to talk about here, I like to refer to it because it keeps my ADHD ass on track. But this transit, excuse me, this transit is a big one. It only happens every 36 years, though not necessarily in Aries, right? Transit Saturn, transit Neptune, fuck each other about every 36 years. Exactly, fuck each other about every 36 years. Last time this happened was in 1989 in Capricorn. The time before that it happened was in 1953 in Libra. I didn't pull the other cards out. but but this time it's in Aries. And it's taking place at 0 degrees Aries, which is a very potent degree. 0 degrees Aries is a very, very potent degree. Not only that, though, but this, okay, for those of you that have ever listened to me talk about like galactic stuff, galactic astrology, the galactic center, the galactic grand cross, all that, this conjunction between Saturn and Neptune at 0 degrees, 45 minutes of Aries is very close to an area of the sky that I call blank space. And that is opposing the supergalactic center. And I do think that this Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Aries at 0 degrees Aries, close to blank space, that's also a thing too. Not only the potency of the 0 degree Aries point, but also being very close to blank space. So there is like galactic stuff going on here too. Now, before I get into all of this, first of all, because I will be pulling the star cards out, if you are interested in the star cards, learning more about them, checking them out, purchasing them, whatever, I will put the link in the description box below or to the side or wherever it is, where you can check them out. And because they really are a fabulous learning tool, astrological learning tool. The second thing I want to mention is whenever you are listening to somebody talk about transits, astro weather, whatever, whether it's you're listening to them, you're reading something they've written, whatever, keep in mind you have to bring your own natal chart into consideration to know how a transit will play out for you. This is so important. Like the things that I'm going to talk about in this video are themes, things, ideas for when transit Saturn and transit Neptune conjunct one another or fuck each other in the sky. but in Aries, right? How in Aries, because the sign is how energy is expressed, and the planet is what energy is wanting to be expressed, needing to be expressed, should be expressed. And then the houses, which I'm not going to get into here because I'm not looking at an actual chart. Houses are areas of life or where something is expressed through. But you have to bring your own chart into account, because what I'm going to bring up, what other people might bring up, these are ideas, themes, things that could come up, but they might play out differently for you. So to know how this plays out for you, it's very important to bring your own chart into consideration. What house is this transit falling in? What planets is it aspecting? What angles? What asteroids even? Whatever. It's just an important thing to bring into play if you want to know how it's going to play out for you versus just how this might play out for the collective, if that makes sense. And if you would like some help with understanding how this transit or any transit might play out for you, I do readings. I will put the link in the description box where you can get a reading from me if you would like one. I would love to read for you if you would like me to. Okay. On to the actual stuff, the business of the video, the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Aries. Now, in the last video, I pulled out some of my Illuminati cards. I have some to pull out today too. But I pulled out Time Warp, I pulled out Hat Trick, and I pulled out Criminal Overlords. And I talked about government conspiracy. Government is a Saturn thing. Conspiracy is a Neptune thing. But you know, when I think about conspiracy also, when I say a thing, let me also back that up. When I say a thing, like when I say like government is a Saturn thing, one of the things that Saturn might express or represent is government or governments or whatever. Neptune may express something like conspiracy. You know, and we're seeing here in the US anyway, it's not funny. It's really not. It's but we're seeing I went back and rewatched that video and I was like, "Huh, yeah, all right." We're seeing it's very interesting with all the Epstein shit that's coming out right now. It's just very interesting watching all of this stuff come out now, right around the time of the exactitude of this conjunction, right? Because while as I'm filming this, it's not exact yet. You know, the energy is still there, and the energy will still be there for a little bit, you know, after the exactitude of this conjunction happens. So I definitely expect more of that kind of stuff. I definitely do. I absolutely do. I absolutely expect more of it. I'll just go, I won't go too much into that particular thing because I already did that in the previous video. So I do suggest you watch that if you haven't already watched it. You know, another thing, something that I didn't get to in the previous video is the notion of toxicity. Neptune is like intoxication and intoxicants. That's even a word. I think it is. and toxicity, things that are toxic to us, things like that. But so is Saturn. So is Saturn, actually. So this gets me thinking about toxicity in general. This got me thinking about it. I'm going to read a short bit from my blog post about the Saturn-Neptune conjunction and toxins. Now, we all know that there are many toxins in the world around us. These can be found in the air that we breathe, in the food that we eat, etc. Especially here in the US, this might not be as much of an issue in other parts of the world, but I think there's toxins everywhere you go, everywhere. This really, excuse me, this really gets me thinking about the different ways that the self, Aries, comes into contact with these toxins on an everyday basis and what we might realize about toxicity in general under this conjunction. In 1989, the last time transit Saturn and Neptune were conjunct one another in Capricorn, the toxic release inventory was established. This required certain types of manufacturing and industry to report the chemicals and toxins that were released into the environment. In 1953, the second to last time that transit Saturn and Neptune were conjunct one another, this time in Libra, the first poison control center was set up in Chicago because so many children were ending up poisoned by what seems like the world around them. So I guess the good thing about this particular conjunction is that it does seem to be a catalyst for things changing regarding toxicity in our environment, becoming more aware of such things, both on a collective and a personal level. But it's how much toxic shit is found that is concerning or could be found. To kind of add on to the idea of toxicity with the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, I have to wonder if not only we will be tasked with facing the different toxins in the environment, but also facing ways that we have been toxic to ourselves. Again, since Aries energy deals with the self, this could be ways that we have literally introduced ourselves to toxins, but also ways that we ourselves can be toxic. This could take place on both an individual and or collective level. Okay, so collectively, we're kind, you know, and toxins can be, right, things can be toxic to us. Things can be toxic to us in the physical world, right? We're inundated with these all the time. But there's also the notion of like behavioral toxicity or people that behave in a toxic way, toxic situations. This could be, and really it could be people, places, things, situations, just things that are toxic. I do think, you know, wherever this particular conjunction falls in your chart, in your natal chart, in your astrology chart, that house that it falls, I would definitely do a little housekeeping and see if there's anything in those areas of life that could be toxic to you. This might even be something that you're realizing right now or you've started to realize. For instance, let's say let's say this is going on in your fifth house. Let's just say it is. Let's just say this conjunction is happening in your fifth house, not taking anything else into consideration. Maybe there is something about your creative self-expression that's kind of toxic. Maybe there is. Perhaps there is. Maybe there is something, the fifth house is also like it's childlike. It can be children. Maybe there's something about the way you are with your kids that's kind of toxic, or maybe there is something, kind of childlike about you that while there's nothing wrong with being childlike at all, maybe there's something about the way you do that's kind of toxic. I don't know. I mean, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like you being the toxic one either, right? It could be like, let's say this is going on in your, let's say this is happening in your sixth house. That's daily mundane life. That's the work that you do in your work environment. Maybe your fucking work environment's toxic. Maybe it's toxic. Maybe it has nothing to do with you, but it's toxic to your sense of self. Aries energy is self-focused. That doesn't equate to selfish. Some people equate that automatically to selfish. That's not the case. But Aries energy does have a self-focus. So yeah, in the sixth house, maybe it's your work environment. Maybe your work environment is toxic to you. Maybe your routines. There's something toxic about your routine. Perhaps there is a toxin that you encounter during your daily mundane life. It doesn't have to be, my point is, it doesn't have to be you being the toxic one, but I would definitely think about if there are any places in that house's area of life where you could be, because this is, again, there is a self-focus here in Aries. So this is something to consider. Think about toxicity in general, because I do think there is something to that. I also think on a collective level, we have toxins around us all the time. We all the time, not doing anything good for anybody. But not only that, like, I'm in Texas. I'm in the US. So I am more US centric in terms of like world events, if you will, and US history. But I'm looking at like the way our government really, we are doing some toxic shit. Like, there's toxic shit going on. It's been going on for a long time. And I don't think it's just the US. I think it is several. It's not just here. It is not just here. But there is a lot of toxicity that does feel like it's being exposed. It's being exposed. It's coming to light. It's coming very much to light, and it's coming to light in a very aggressive way. Aries can be aggressive in an aggressive way. Another thing I wanted to mention about this particular conjunction is the idea of real fakes. Okay, Saturn being like master of reality and reality in general, what's real. Neptune being fake. Neptune can be a lot of things. I'm kind of ragging on it. I do think Neptune transits can be hard. I think they can be. But I think some people rag on Saturn and Pluto transits more than this, and I think these transits can be very hard. But the idea of real fakes, right? Neptune can also be like, it's very spiritual, it's very, very creative, all these lovely things, but it can definitely be, illusions, delusions, fakeness, all of this. And, right now we are, in the age of AI, we are seeing a lot of things that are, when I say real fakes, I mean, like, it's almost hard to distinguish what's real from what's not. And it's getting harder, though. The more you kind of see this stuff, the more you can kind of figure out what is and what isn't, though I'm sure there are things that are so good that you can't really tell. But the idea of real fakes do come up here for me. But not just that, like, not just in terms of AI, though. I think it definitely plays in, especially with Pluto and Aquarius. Especially with Pluto and Aquarius, which also feels very AI as well. Artificial intelligence, very, very much so. Transformation of that. Yeah. So we've got that going on too, which also brings the AI thing into play. But just the notion of real fake in general, or what is real, what is fake. I think for people, and I think collectively we're going to be asked this, not just with AI stuff, but in general, like, what is real, what is fake? you know, I think this is something, and I mean, I see that happening collectively in a bunch of ways, like in some kind of a way, collectively asking what's real, what's fake, but also individually per your astrology chart. You know, in the area of life, wherever this particular conjunction happens to fall in your chart, think about what's real there and what's fake. Are there things that you have been pretending to be okay with, but you're really not? If you really think about it, you're really not. Are there ways that you have been fake in that house's area of life? Do you feel like people are fake with you, or something outside of you is fake with you in that area of life? That I think is something, I think this is also something to think about and to consider under this transit, under this particular transit. I think it is. Another thing to bring up is, okay, so unhappiness. You know, Saturn tends to, unhappiness can be a way that Saturn expresses itself, or, you know, something that Saturn wants to express, needs to express, should express. It can be. It can be. And Neptune, okay, so while Neptune is not the ruler of the 12th house, unless of course, unless of course your 12th house happens to have Pisces on the cusp. But Neptune does have an affinity for the 12th house, and the 12th house can be a place where unhappiness exists too. It can also be other things as well, but unhappiness can exist in the 12th house. So unhappiness here coming to kind of a breaking point does feel like a thing here. And you know, we're seeing this too collectively. We are seeing this. There are a lot of people that are that are really pissed off. I was going to say a lot of pissed off. That doesn't make sense. That are really fucking pissed off with how things are going, just in general. I know they are here in the US, but I also know they are in other places too. There's a lot of unhappiness. A lot of unhappiness. That doesn't mean it's all bad, but there is a lot of unhappiness. And I feel like, because this is an Aries, right? Aries energy does shit. Like, it gets shit done. It doesn't fuck around. It does. Now, sometimes that's not always, sometimes that's to its detriment, right? But I think, you know, if we kind of ride that wave of, I'm fucking pissed about this, or we're collectively pissed off about this, especially with this conjunction sextile Pluto and Aquarius. This feels very much like this card, power to the people. Like, we can take that unhappiness and we can take that unhappiness and we can do something with it. Now, that doesn't mean that whatever we try to do with it happens right away, because I'll also say this happens on February, the exactitude of this happens on February 20th of 2026. We have a solar eclipse in Aquarius, or the Aquarius Solar Eclipse, that takes place on February 17th. I did a video about that too, and I'll link it. Long story short, though, about this eclipse, because this happens a few days after that eclipse. So I do think that there is like that eclipse is helping to usher in whatever happens here, right? So with that eclipse, it's conjunct, it happens to be conjunct something called Cygnus X3. And Cygnus X3 essentially has a lag of 5 to 10 years. Like, it's ahead of its time by 5 to 10 years. I won't get into all that, but my point is, I think what we, you know, power to the people, what we we're like, we're done with this. We don't want this anymore. We're fucking pissed, and we just don't want it anymore. We don't want how this is. We might not see anything come to fruition from this for 5 to 10 years. Like, I don't say that to be discouraging. I say that to be realistic, which is very Saturnian, to be realistic. I think what we do now, though, is very important. And I think there's a lot of oomph to it with the Saturn Neptune conjunction taking place at 0 degrees Aries. So the things that we kind of decide we don't want anymore. We're not fucking standing for this. We're not taking this anymore. We don't want this anymore. We get the ball rolling. We start. Aries energy is like, it's the beginning. So it's like we start it now, but it might not come, we might not see it really pay off or come to fruition for 5 to 10 years. That's just something, but the unhappiness thing. So, but on an individual level, consider the area of life where the house that this particular conjunction happens to fall in your chart. If this is happening in your first house, perhaps there's things that you aren't happy with about yourself, things that you would like to, because we all have things that we aren't happy with about ourselves, but maybe this reaches like a point of like, I this needs change. I don't want this anymore. Or maybe in the 11th house, friends, groups, social causes, things like that. It could be that you are unhappy with your friend group. You are unhappy with, something having to do with social causes and humanitarian issues, which, yeah. I mean, yeah, there's a lot to be unhappy with there right now. Just in general, right? So it just take a look at where this transit happens for you in your chart to see what areas of life might be impacted, things like that. It's an important thing to do. One other thing to mention is in this video, I'll probably do another one on this same subject, but this is getting longer than I wanted it to be, so I'm going to stop it soon. But this conjunction, there is a dissolving of boundaries that happens. Now we're seeing that. We're seeing dissolving. We are seeing that. I think in real time, collectively we are. But individually, if there are, well, also structures, not just boundaries. Saturn is structure, among other things. Whoops. But so we're seeing, structures dissolve. We are seeing boundaries dissolve collectively. But in your own life, from an individual lens, think about what house this transit is happening in. Are there boundaries dissolving? Are there structures dissolving? Are you trying to keep them from dissolving, or are you allowing this dissolving to happen? What this is doing really depends on the rest of your chart. Like what this feels like for you. Like if the Saturn Neptune conjunction happens to be like square your sun or or square your moon or something, squaring stuff, making harsher aspects. This dissolving of structure, dissolving of boundaries or whatever might not feel that comfortable. It might not. Maybe it's squaring Saturn. That could probably feel very uncomfortable. You have to take your whole chart into account because you might really want to fight it if there's squares going on or oppositions even. If there are trines, if this particular conjunction is making trines in your chart, right, to your chart, maybe it feels easier. Maybe you don't mind it as much. And another way to use this is perhaps there are things that you have wanted to dissolve the structure of in those houses or areas of life, maybe this is going on in your 7th house. Maybe it is. Maybe you've wanted to dissolve the structure of a relationship, some kind of relationship, close one-on-one partnership, whatever. Maybe you've wanted to dissolve that. And the energy of this particular transit is finally allowing you to do that, or finally giving you the energy to do that, or it finally feels right to do that. This dissolving of boundaries, while challenging, it can be challenging dissolving a structure. It doesn't have to be bad. It might be very necessary. It just might not be super comfortable. This is something to bring up as well. Anyway, I am going to head off, but I was going to show this one. I love this card. The stars are right. It's a cool one. I really should bring these out to play more often. I love them. I absolutely love them. And then this one makes me laugh. Every year is worse. Because sometimes it kind of feels that way. This kind of feels that way. This feels like we're on some kind of crazy ass timeline. It really does. And that's another thing, but I mentioned that already in the other video about like reality distortions with reality. I brought that one card out, I think, already. I brought out a bunch of cards that I didn't even the time warp. There is something kind of time warpy about this. I mean, Saturn being like Saturn's father time, right? Saturn is father time. It's reality. Neptune distorts. So there is something kind of time warpy about this. I do feel like there are a lot of people right now that feel like they're in some kind of liminal space, or they feel like they are kind of between worlds. This also makes sense because of like the planetary changes and shifts this year, and that we also had last year, like very transitory, if you will. But definitely it can kind of feel like, wow, how did I get here? How did we get here? And do we want to stay here? Do we want to go elsewhere? Do we want to jump timelines? Would we like to be somewhere else? This is something to ask yourself. And I mean, it just, because I mean, do we want to be somewhere else? I mean, this is something to ask yourself under this. Do you like the quote timeline that you're on? Do you like how things are going? Do you like it? Some people really might. Some people might be fine with it. I know a lot of people aren't, though. And they would rather shift into something else, something else. And while, I do think that there is sort of a liminal space quality to this particular transit, keep in mind that even if you kind of feel like you're neither here nor there, that feeling of maybe not quite being firmly planted anywhere, or kind of being neither here nor there allows movement. It does allow movement, meaning you have the ability to move beyond where you are. That's a positive way to think about this. So if you ever feel like, God damn, I don't feel like I'm planted anywhere, I don't feel like I really am firmly anywhere, I feel like I'm kind of in between worlds, okay, that can be frustrating. That can feel really uncomfortable. It can, but you can also move very freely between things too. Between quote timelines. It allows for that. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and head out, but I'll probably do more talking about this, I would imagine. Again, check out the other video and the blog posts, all that. And I will see you all later.